Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. So, Jay, we do have a big update in regards to Sebastian Fundora and Errol Spence, which I think a lot of people are going to be interested in hearing. So, Sebastian Fundora had the opportunity to interview with the Spit Bucket podcast here recently. He talked specifically about the Errol Spence situation and did address a little bit the situation that occurred with Terrence Crawford. So I'm going to play that video and then I want us to react to it because I do believe it's big news, but I think we kind of got to read into what he is saying as well. So let me pull this clip up, Jay, so that people can hear what this update is. You can perceive it as good news or you can perceive it as good news with a bit of a contingency tied to it. So let me see. I got it up here. This is Sebastian Fundora, again, courtesy of the Spit Bucket podcast.
Errol Spence, we've been hearing the rumors. Is there any validity to me hearing about this fight in January, February, maybe next year?
It'll be early next year for sure. Early next year for sure. But we just gotta wait for everything. The WBO put them in the rankings. You know, those are obvious reasons that the fight might happen or will happen. So just stay in tune and
I know Tim Tszyu was a big fight, but you fighting Errol Spence, I think this will be a bigger fight.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like going into that ring that you feel like you have to dominate Errol Spence immediately?
Of course. Errol Spence, a lot of these people write him off with that one loss. Errol Spence is still the big fish. He's still a talented fighter. He's still that Olympian. Of course, he's going to go in there with a different mindset probably, a hungry mindset. It's just up to us to keep these belts, you know, show that we are a champion and we're a champion for a reason.
So what's your thoughts? You beat Tim Tszyu. Everybody tried to say, oh, it was probably because of the elbow. But then we see Tim Tszyu come back and we see him losing this next fight. What's your thoughts on Tim Tszyu and him losing in this last fight?
That's boxing. You know, people say a lot of things. They say a lot of opinions. I think that fight, our fight, did a lot of damage. People won't know because they weren't in the ring for that. I think he should have took the rest of the year off. But he's a warrior. He did his thing, you know. He fought for a title again. It didn't go his way, but I'm sure he'll be back.
So with you being at 154, I know you got a lot of stuff to do here, but they was asking your sister the same question. I guess it's because of y'all body frame. We can see you guys moving up multiple.
I'm going to skip this part. I want to see if I can get closer to the end.
Everybody's going to say they want undisputed. I don't really care about it. Everybody seems to be in our weight class. We got Crawford, we got Spence, we got Virgil, we got all these big names right here. I want to get all those money fights. I'll grab all those money fights, and maybe after that, I'll move up to 160.
Well, speaking of Crawford, what happened to that? Because for some reason, we seen Sebastian versus Crawford. Was it on y'all end that y'all didn't want the fight, or was it Terrence Crawford?
I can't speak for Crawford, but we were ready. We were ready to go. You know, it's just... You read it. This guy stepped aside for whatever reason, but...
All right, and that's almost the end of it. I think it's only about 12 or 13 more seconds of this particular clip, Jay. So, interesting news there. Interesting update. So, first and foremost, apparently Terrence Crawford paid himself step-aside money for this particular fight so that Errol Spence could get the opportunity to face Sebastian Fundora. Now, I like what I heard there. Clearly, early 2025 is where they're targeting. So, and we did a video probably about, 2 or 3 weeks ago where we talked about the fact that TGB was petitioning the WBO to have Errol Spence for rank. And that was partly, more than likely, the reason why the fight had not been announced yet, because they want the fight to be for all the titles. But the interesting thing that Sebastian Fundora said in there was, he mentioned specifically that, and he said something to the effect of, obviously that will be a reason why the fight will happen. For me, that tells me that there's maybe a possibility that the fight won't happen if he's not ranked, because I don't feel that Sebastian Fundora wants to give up his titles, and that was the reason why he was interested in facing Terrence Crawford. He simply didn't want to give up his belts. So I do believe that that's a possibility that, the fight may not happen if the WBO does not rank Errol Spence in the top 15. Jay, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's showing that it looks like Sebastian just is about that action, man. He's not really caring about, when you say he doesn't really care about too much about undisputed, because he's looking at it, the people that's in his division, not necessarily champions, are some of the better fights. I mean, Spence, Virgil, those are big fights for him right there. So, I mean, I'm not mad at him for that. He also lets you know he wants the money too. He wants the money. He wants the big money fights. You know, so but
Facts.
he's not shying away from it. Him coming out talking like he is, saying that they were down for the Bud fight, let you know that hey, he was ready for that. He's just ready. He just really seemed like he wants to fight. Also, he also is interesting that he talked about the damage that Tim Tszyu may have suffered from their fight. Because
Yeah.
it was a grueling fight. He thought that Tim Tszyu should have just taken the rest of the year off before fighting again. So he feels that he really put some damage on Tszyu outside of the elbow to the top of the cranium on that. So I mean, it's good seeing Fundora step out of his shell because he's usually, not very talkative like this. But him coming out like this, I appreciate it, and I wanted to see him in the ring sooner than later as well. And hopefully, it is against Spence. But to your point, it's contingent on if they rank him or not, because he's not going to fight Spence without him just to lose a belt that way. Especially since but kind of step back, say y'all go ahead and do y'all thing.
Yeah. I agree. I think that was the interesting part about that. I've always been under the belief that the fight is on. Once we heard about TGB petitioning the WBO, I knew that was an issue at that point. Not necessarily an issue, but definitely something that was a bit of a concern. I felt that it was coming from the side of Sebastian Fundora, right? So I definitely think that's a contingency. Like, he needs to be ranked by the WBO. Now, I don't see there being any reason why the WBO shouldn't rank him. There's been arguments about Sebastian Fundora trying to pull some shenanigans and fight Errol Spence instead of Terrence Crawford, and that's the reason why they pulled Errol Spence out of the top 15. That argument holds no validity. It makes absolutely no sense because Terrence Crawford was the mandatory. So regardless of if Errol Spence was ranked or not, he had to face Terrence Crawford or be stripped. Didn't matter. So didn't quite understand that logic. So I'm just not really tracking and following with why they dropped Errol out of the top 15 when he was rated in the top 15 as recent as August. Hopefully they'll put him back in. We'll see this fight materialize, and it'll be a great night for boxing, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. To your point about them dropping Errol, I'm like, Spence was ranked for 3 months straight, number 5 and number 6, and then all of a sudden he's just yanked. So it's odd. But we've seen these sanctioning bodies do some really weird stuff over time. So I'm not surprised, but I hope they do the right thing and put him back in the ranking. That way we can get this fight, which is an outstanding fight, as well as preventing Fundora from losing a belt, or having to go elsewhere, because if he doesn't fight Spence, what's he going to do next?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. You guys tell us what you think in the comment section in regards to this update. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast, AM Sports Media, and we are out.